Brenda thought she could trade her stepdaughter's family legacy for a set of luxury wheels and a custom license plate. She spent $65,000 of stolen money on a Range Rover, thinking her grand entrance at the family reunion would cement her status as the Rossi family queen. She didn't realize that Maya had already called the repo man to make sure Brenda's exit was a lot more memorable than her arrival. But don't take my word for it. Here is Maya's story, in her own words. My name is Maya, and I believe that foundations are everything. My mother taught me that long before she passed away 4 years ago. She used to say that you can't build a life on sand, and you certainly can't build a family on lies. I'm a high-end jewelry appraiser. Ironic, I know. And I've spent my career respecting the history, the soul, and the weight behind every piece of gold and every facet of a diamond. I'm not a person who seeks out conflict. I'm the one who sits in the back of the room, observing the clarity of a stone through a loop. But when someone decides to dig up the very roots of your family just to build a monument to their own vanity, you don't just sit back and watch. You dismantle them. When my father, Richard, met Brenda 3 years ago, I wanted to be the supportive daughter. My father was lonely, a shell of himself after losing Mom, and Brenda seemed like the sunlight he needed. She was bubbly, high energy, and seemed deeply invested in his happiness. I ignored the red flags, the way she always seemed to be looking at the price tags of the art in our living room, or how she quickly rebranded herself as a socialite the moment she moved in. In fact, I went above and beyond to make her feel welcome. When Richard's consulting business hit a rough patch right after their engagement, I didn't hesitate. I dipped into my own savings and paid $25,000 for their honeymoon in Maui. I wanted them to start their life together without stress. I even spent $15,000 of my own money to upgrade the security system in my father's house. I told them it was for their safety, but in my heart, I was protecting the Elena collection, my mother's vintage Harry Winston set and a rare 4-carat pear-shaped diamond that was supposed to be my wedding gift one day. For 2 years, I acted as Brenda's unpaid personal assistant. I spent my weekends organizing her benefit luncheons and charity auctions, making sure she looked like the pillar of the community she so desperately wanted to be. I watched her treat my mother's home like a hotel she had been destined to inherit, rearranging the furniture and hiding Mom's photos in the attic. I swallowed my pride because I loved my father. I thought that if I gave enough, if I sacrificed enough of my time and money, she would eventually respect the boundaries of our family history. I was wrong. Brenda didn't want to be part of the family. She wanted to own the legacy, and she was just waiting for the right moment to cash it in. The betrayal didn't come in a dark alley or through a whispered secret. It happened on a bright, sunny Sunday afternoon during one of those mandatory family dinners that Brenda loved to host to show off her newfound status. I pulled into the driveway and stopped dead. There, parked right where my mother used to park her modest station wagon, was a beast of a machine. It was a brand new, metallic black Range Rover, shimmering with a coat of wax so thick it looked like wet ink. I walked around to the back and saw the custom plate, B-Lux. I felt a pit form in my stomach. My father's business hadn't just bounced back that quickly. I walked into the house and the air was thick with the smell of Brenda's expensive perfume and roasting lamb. Brenda was in the foyer, glass of chilled Chardonnay in hand, practically vibrating with excitement. "Maya, darling, you saw her, didn't you?" she chirped, not even waiting for me to say hello. Richard finally realized that a woman in my position needs a vehicle that commands respect. It's got the full executive package, heated massage seats, a refrigerated console. It's heaven. My father stood behind her, looking a bit sheepish, but mostly proud that he had provided for his wife. He patted her shoulder and whispered something about how she deserved it for all the housework she did. Housework? We had a cleaning crew twice a week. Brenda's only work was spending money. I felt a cold shiver. While they headed into the dining room to brag to the neighbors, I excused myself, claiming I needed to wash my hands. I didn't go to the bathroom. I went to the library, to the floor safe hidden under the Persian rug. This was the safe I had spent $15,000 securing. I punched in the code, my fingers trembling. The heavy steel door swung open, but the velvet-lined drawers didn't glitter. The Elena collection was gone. The vintage Harry Winston necklace, the teardrop earrings, and the 4-carat pear-shaped diamond, the one Mom told me would stay in the family for 100 years, were missing. In their place was a small, crumpled yellow tag from a local pawn shop on the edge of town, a place known for discreet, high-value liquidations. I sat on the floor, the cold stone of the library pressing into my legs, and I realized Brenda hadn't just bought a car. She had traded my mother's soul for 4 wheels and a massage seat. I didn't scream. I didn't run out there and make a scene. I walked into the kitchen where Brenda was pouring more wine. I waited until my father was out of earshot. "The vault is empty, Brenda," I said, my voice as flat as a blade. She didn't even flinch. She just took a long sip of her wine and smirked at me over the rim of the glass. "Richard said I deserve something nice, Maya. And let's be honest, the dead don't need diamonds. They're much better suited for someone who's actually alive to enjoy them." That was the moment the Maya who sought peace died. In her place was someone who understood exactly what needed to be done. I didn't argue with her. I didn't even give her the satisfaction of seeing a single tear. I simply nodded, walked back into the dining room, and sat through a 3-course meal listening to her talk about the smooth handling of her new SUV. My father smiled, oblivious to the fact that his wife had just gutted his family's history. But as I sat there, I wasn't tasting the food. I was calculating. You see, Brenda was greedy, but she wasn't smart. She assumed that because she was the wife, she had a right to everything in that house. What she didn't know, and what my father had clearly forgotten, was the survivorship trust my mother had set up before she passed. That jewelry wasn't just in the house. It was legally bound. The trust explicitly stated that the Elena collection could only be sold or transferred with the written, notarized consent of both the surviving spouse and the primary beneficiary, me. The moment I got into my car, the good daughter was gone. I drove straight to a 24-hour diner, pulled out my laptop, and started digging. I didn't just want the jewelry back. I wanted Brenda to feel the weight of what she had done. If she wanted to use Mom's legacy to drive around in luxury, I was going to make sure that car became the very thing that crushed her reputation. I spent the next morning in the office of Sarah Jenkins, a sharp-as-nails estate attorney who had seen 1,000 Brendas in her career. When I showed her the empty vault and the pawn shop tag, her eyes narrowed. "She forged your signature on the bill of sale, Maya," Sarah said, tapping the trust documents. "That's not just a family dispute. It's grand larceny and fraud." "I don't want to just call the police yet," I told her. "I want her to feel the public shame. The Rossi family reunion is in 10 days. Every influential partner, every wealthy relative, and every person Brenda has been trying to impress will be at my grandfather's estate." We drafted the plan with surgical precision. Since the $65,000 down payment was fraudulent proceeds, the financing for the Range Rover was technically void. I didn't just want the car gone. I wanted the B-Lux lifestyle to end in front of the only audience Brenda actually cared about. The next week was a masterclass in psychological warfare. I acted as though nothing was wrong. I even complimented Brenda on the superb leather stitching of her Range Rover, watching her preen like a peacock. Every time she patted the dashboard of that car, I saw the ghost of my mother's diamonds, and it fueled a cold, quiet fire in my chest. While Brenda was busy picking out a designer dress for the Rossi family reunion, I was busy behind the scenes with Sarah and a specialized recovery agent named Marcus. Marcus didn't work for a standard repo lot. He handled high-value asset recovery for banks dealing with fraud. "The paperwork is airtight, Maya," Marcus told me over a secure line. "The bank has already flagged the down payment as fraudulent. Legally, that vehicle is stolen property. We have the seizure warrant ready to go. You just tell us when." "Saturday," I replied. 2:00. My grandfather's estate in Greenwich. Make sure the truck is visible from the main garden. I also spent 3 days tracking down the jeweler from the pawn shop tag. He was a nervous man who specialized in gray market luxury goods. When I walked into his shop with a copy of the survivorship trust and a direct threat of a felony police report, he turned white. He still had the Harry Winston necklace and the pear-shaped diamond. He hadn't moved them yet. They were too high profile. I made him sign a sworn affidavit detailing exactly who sold them to him and for how much. I told him he had 2 choices: return the items to my attorney for the exact price Brenda was paid, or spend a decade in a federal cell for receiving stolen property. He chose the former. The pieces were in place. Brenda thought she was preparing for her coronation. She had no idea she was actually heading toward a public execution of her social life. The afternoon of the Rossi reunion was perfect, the kind of golden high society day Brenda lived for. My grandfather's estate was filled with over 50 of the most influential people in the state. Brenda was in her element, standing right next to her metallic black Range Rover in the circular driveway, a glass of Prosecco in one hand, gesturing wildly with the other. "The V8 engine is just so responsive," I heard her boast to my great-aunts. "Richard really outdid himself this time. It's a B-Lux life, isn't it?" That's when the heavy rumble of a flatbed truck cut through the classical music. The guests turned as Marcus's repo truck pulled right into the center of the party. Marcus stepped out, holding a clipboard and a set of heavy chains. "Brenda Rossi?" he called out over the crowd. "I'm here to recover vehicle VIN ending in 4292. Seizure warrant for fraudulent acquisition of funds." The silence was deafening. Brenda's face went from bronze to ashen in 3 seconds. "This is a mistake," she shrieked, her voice cracking. "My husband bought this! Richard, tell him!" My father stepped forward, confused, but I intercepted him. I handed him the pawn shop, affidavit, and the trust documents. "She didn't buy it with your money, Dad. She sold Mom's Harry Winston set to pay for it. She forged my name to steal my inheritance." My father looked at the papers, then at Brenda, who was now clutching the car door as Marcus began to hook the chains to the axle. The look of pure, disgusted realization on my father's face was more satisfying than any diamond. "Richard, honey," Brenda started, but my father just walked away. He didn't even look back. My grandfather, the patriarch who valued the Rossi name above all else, stepped toward Brenda. "You have 60 seconds to get your personal belongings out of that car," he said, his voice like rolling thunder. "Then you will leave this estate. You are no longer a Rossi, and you are certainly no longer welcome in our lives." In front of everyone, the partners, the neighbors, the family she tried so hard to impress, Brenda had to scramble into the car to grab her purse and shoes while the truck began to lift the wheels off the ground. Today, Brenda lives in a cramped studio apartment working a retail job to pay off the legal fees from the fraud charges my father helped me file during their divorce. She has no car, no diamonds, and certainly no status. As for me, I'm back in the library. The vault is secure, and the Elena collection is back in its velvet drawers. I'm finally at peace, knowing that while Brenda wanted the B-Lux life, I'm the one who kept the foundation. Maya finally reclaimed her mother's legacy, but the road to justice was paved with a heartbreaking betrayal. Looking back at Brenda's choices, what did you learn from this? And who do you think was truly at fault for letting things go this far? It is important to note that this story was a dramatization, a fictional scenario created specifically for societal reform and awareness. We show you these dark realities so you can recognize the warning signs and ensure you don't repeat these mistakes or let greed tear your own family apart. In the end, a luxury life built on stolen foundations will always collapse. But true justice ensures that what was taken eventually finds its way home. If you learned something valuable from this video, please subscribe and hit the bell icon to join us daily.